Welcome, everybody. This is assignment 4 of our series on music production in Audiotool. As you can see, I've already dropped a machinist drum pattern in here, or drum machine rather, and I've loaded my usual kick, snare, and hi-hat samples into it. And I have already done the create a note track. Here's my note track for this. Go ahead and pause the video and catch up there. Get yourself the machinist, load some samples into it, kick, snare, and hat, and create a note track, not a pattern track, but a note track so that we can work in this. So I'm going to assume that you've already paused the video and caught up to where I am. So next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to double click out here and create a region, slide it back. I'm going to make this region 2 measures. Double click on it, and so we get our piano roll, and I'm going to extend the pattern to be 2 measures long. Not only that, I'm going to extend the region to be 4 measures long so that it's going to play our 2 measure pattern twice. It's going to loop it a second time. So first thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to just get a basic beat happening here. Make sure and do this with me. I'm just going to highlight that and control drag these guys into the second measure. Now I have a basic beat here. So it's a foundation for us to start from. Now, what we're going to do is notice right at the top here, next to our Nintendo Switch, we've got the show tempo and automation, or tempo automation rather. We're going to click on that and notice that it shows, it says BPM, that's beats per minute. 30 is the slowest and 300 is the fastest that it will go. And there's no information in here yet. So at the moment, this thing is running at 120 beats per minute is the default. And so that's what this sound is that we're hearing now. 120 beats per minute. That's the speed that we're going. Now, if we double click in here, we create a point. And since there's no information before the point, then the entire song starts there. So if I point at that, I got it at 109. Now notice the speed is different. Just a little slower. If I grab that point and drag it down, there's 77. This should be pretty slow. Or we can make it ridiculously fast. There's 170-ish. So getting the right feel for your song depends a lot on picking the right tempo for it. There's going to be 2 things that we're going to be covering here in this lesson. First is the fact that you can choose the tempo. And then the second is choosing the right density of your beat so that you are taking up the right amount of space within that. Are you leaving lots of breathing room, an empty space, or are you taking up tons of space and having it be just really, really intense and energetic? Those really affect the vibe of your track. So we're going to try and get that right. Before I continue, I'm going to grab this region right here and I'm going to select it, control, drag, so I have a second one. So what we're going to do here, if I can just adjust my bounds a little bit, this is what you're going to need to turn in. You're going to need to turn in a 2 measure pattern that's looped out to 4 measures, and we're going to have a really dense pattern in here. And then in the second one, we're going to have a same thing. It's going to be open up a 2 measure pattern here, looped out to 4 measures so that we can hear it repeat. And this one is going to be really sparse. And so I'm going to walk you through what that means right now. Just for my OCD here, I'm going to grab this, and instead of having it be out in the middle somewhere, I'm going to pull it all the way to the beginning. Now, for the purposes of this assignment, because the default here is 120 beats per minute, I'm going to ask you guys to choose either 110 beats or slower than that, or 130 beats per minute or faster than that. So you get to choose if you're going faster or slower than the default. I think I'm gonna go with the slower. I'm gonna pull mine down to about 90. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can double click on it and type in the exact number if you're looking for something precise. But you don't have to be super precise. Just make sure you're at least 10 beats away, either faster or slower than our 120 beats. Okay, so since I've already chosen a speed, I don't even need this tempo track anymore. I can just close that. Here's what we sound like at the moment. Okay, so in this one, I want to fill this space up a lot. You know what? I think I'm going to go even slower. Instead of 90, I'm going to go down to like 75-ish. Here we are. So it's pretty slow, right? Because I'm going to make this dense, I'm going to zoom in on that so I can see my little subdivisions in here. Lots smaller grid lines right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all those, and I'm going to grab the end of one and drag it smaller. This is not going to change the sound of anything. It just means that these notes don't cover up any more space than I want at the moment. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hi-hat to fill in some of this space. So I think I want it even more dense than that. So I'm going to zoom in a little closer, get another subdivision there. And see, that's going to sound like this, right? That's not quite what I wanted. Just going to back those up. There we go. Okay, so I got something happening there. Just going to grab these, and I'm going to control drag. Now, I've basically duplicated that, but I've offset this. Notice that I've got 1.13 here is where this long string of notes starts right here, but I've missed by one grid line right here. I'm not on 3.3, same as a position I was going to have over here. 1.3, that's where that starts. When I get over here in beat 3, I'm not starting halfway across beat 3. This is beat 3 proper, right? Here's halfway across, and so I'm off by one segment. Listen to what this sounds like. I don't like that super a whole lot, but I can just move a couple of things, and I think it'll start to do what I want. Okay, so that's got kind of a flavor to it. So that's I'm gonna delete my hi-hat off the second measure and just copy that. And okay, now I think what I want to do is get some extra kick drums in here. So basically we're trying to figure out how to, this thing is really slow, but I don't want it to drag. I want it to be slow, but I want it to be high energy. I want it to drive hard. So here we go. I'm going to just drop another kick drum in there. There we go. So that I like what that's doing. Let's see. Yes. Good. Okay. So now I want to get more similar kinds of sounds. My heat came on behind me. for that closer grid line right there. There we go. Okay, so if you want to skip over parts of this, it might be worth it to see kind of how I'm developing this. But for the most part, you just have to see what I'm doing and then work through a similar process yourself. So you want to end up with a nice dense beat here. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so the hi-hat's got some interesting stuff going in it. The kick drum's got some interesting stuff in it. But notice we get these weird spots like right here and over here where there's just nothing happening for kind of a long period of time, and it feels a little strange. Since I haven't done anything in the snare drum yet, I'm going to use the snare drum to fill in some of those spaces. And probably more than that. Okay, so let's zoom in on that snare hit. I'm gonna slide over here. There it is. I actually want to make that not be one hit. I'm gonna make that be 4 hits. Okay. Okay, so that is dramatic and actually doesn't sound super good, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take and adjust the velocities. These little lines underneath here are how hard the note is supposed to be hit by the computer. So if I grab that one and drag it down like super quiet, and I'm gonna do that with all of these, but I'm gonna have it slowly build in energy, never quite getting all the way to full, but I want it to kind of drive into this kick drum hit that's here, and maybe I'll put a snare drum hit there as well. Let's see what that sounds like. And I think I'm going to move that over, see what that sounds like. Okay, now we got, you might like it, you might not like it, but it's definitely got a flavor to it. That's quite a feature. That sticks out a lot here. The snare drum is a really, really, man, it's just such a distinct sound. So, what I want to do now is use the snare drum more. Because that's such a bizarre thing that sticks out here, I'm going to put more of that sort of flavor here and there throughout the beat. So I'm going to zoom in on that spot. Again, I'm going to try and snare drum. I'm going to try and control drag. That's what I'm after. Maybe make that one a kick drum. Okay. Now you can feel the flavor starting to come together here a little bit, huh? Okay, so I'm not going to make you sit through the entire thing here, but notice what I've got happening here is I've got a bunch of variation in the hi-hats, I've got a bunch of variation in the kick drums, and in the snare drum, and changing the velocity. I've only started to change the velocity on just the snare drum, and maybe that's enough, but I think you might find you can get a lot of interest in your beat by varying the velocity in all of the parts. Just make sure you put the strongest amount of weight on the beats where you want people to feel those beats. Okay, so that's plenty good enough for that. You get the idea of what I'm after. Over here in the second part, now we're going to make a really sparse beat. So at the moment, this is what we got. I think I'm going to start by removing some stuff here. Let's just remove the first snare drum hit from each measure. See what that sounds like. Okay, it's starting to get a little something happening, but I don't like how square it sounds. So I'm going to move that kick drum off of beat 3 to 3.5. So without having to remove a hit, I just kind of slid it over here. I've left this big empty space where things aren't happening for a moment. The hi-hat is keeping me going there. Just for giggles, I'm going to delete half of these hi-hats and see what that does to my beat. Okay, so notice what I've done here is I've added in the second half of this, stuck an extra kick drum in there. Let's see what that does to the flavor of this thing. So I think the sparse beat by itself, it just sounds really empty, but when you get more music in there, we start to get some, bass lines and or a vocalist doing their thing in here. A lot of times this drum beat that's super sparse with all this empty space is going to make a lot better sense, and we're also going to be able to understand how it fits with the rest of the song in a way that lets us make more informed choices about where we actually want these beats. But notice at this point, if I just stretch out my whole view area here, let's listen to the entire thing. I've got the dense part and then the sparse part. So, vastly different feel between those two parts. So that's what I'm looking for, guys. In this assignment, I want yours to be hopefully a little bit more developed than I have done here. Try and mess with it a little bit, make some choices and some artistic ideas. I only put the snare in the first measure here. Don't try and keep a similar feel all the way through your beat, so it doesn't sound like you're changing gears halfway through. It should sound consistent, if that makes sense. So, looking for a 2-bar loop that's been extended to 4 bars. I'm sorry, a 2-bar pattern that's been looped out to 4 bars of a dense beat, and a 2-bar pattern that's been looped out to 4 bars of a sparse beat, and pick a tempo that's above 130 or below 110. And make sure you name, I haven't actually saved or named this project yet. Make sure you save it and publish it and call it assignment 4. And then same as usual, post a link to your profile page so that I can see in your published tracks here, I can see your assignment, and make sure it's remixable so that I can click the little remix this track and have a look on the inside of it and see what you have done. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks much.